Right, back again. Just finished my lunch. It was great. In this video, I'm going to be talking through the new rack. So like a rig rundown sort of thing. Used to have the rack brute 6U from Arturia, which I filled up pretty quickly. And there's other videos where I just go through that. I also then had to get a smaller sidecar, little dope for small box, which I put other modules in. But then of course it's a disease. So I bought more modules and needed somewhere to put it. So I got this new case from Etsy. It's a 9U, 104 HP case. And in this video, I'm going to talk through what modules are in it, why I put them there. This isn't a mistake. It doesn't look like that by mistake. Like that was hours of meticulous, annoying planning and all this rubbish on Modular Grid to the stage that it is now. So I'm going to talk you through what it is that I'm doing with it, why I have the modules that I have, and sort of why I'm using them, really. Because someone could have the exact same modules as that and use it completely differently. I've been watching loads and loads of stuff recently. Other modular synthesists, I suppose, doing some strange things which I wouldn't even have thought of doing. So mine's more of a conventional way of working in terms of structure with things. But yeah, we'll go through it. Come and join me. Okay, so as mentioned, let's go through the rack. So I thought the best way to go through it would be to start talking about how I actually get it to work. So like how I'm using it. Best thing about modular synthesis is that everyone can use it completely differently. I've been getting into maths recently, not the module. There's a guy called Maths, M-A-T-T-H-S. It might just be Matt H-S. I don't know. Followed him on Instagram. He has the best looking modular rig I think I've ever seen. It's like two big cases mounted on a wall, backlit. It's just like the definition of sick looking rig. Anyway, I come at it more of like a conventional, I'm making music, like I'll start with a drum beat and then I'll start with like a bass line underneath that. But I'm getting more into that freer way of working, so just working with noise and stuff like that. But anyway, how I'm working it now, everything runs off the MPC, which you can't really see. It's just like down here, just underneath it, in front of it. The MPC Live 2, I'm a massive MPC user. I've said this before in the other videos, which you might have watched. Started years and years ago. Well, I'd say years and years ago. It's probably 2009. Yeah, so around about 2009, I got my first one, for 2500. I then had a 1000 for a bit. I then had a 2000 XL for like a week, but it didn't work, so I sent it back. And then I got a 5000 after that. I then got into Machine and started using Machine a lot because it was the same sort of layout but very software driven, which is where I was at with what I was doing at the time. But then got the MPC Live a few years back when that first came out, and then they brought the Live 2 out, which was this retro beige, which, come on, you got to do it, innit? So yeah, sold the other one and bought this one. But this runs everything. So this is runs MIDI out. I've also got CV coming out of this as well. But how I've got it running, so everything here goes when I press play on the MPC. Come out MIDI and I come up into the first module that's in the rack top left, which is the Lifeforms by Pittsburgh Modular. My first ever venture into modular synthesis was this. I bought it as a desktop synth, but it always interested me, all the holes on the front of it, and like knowing that I could patch something but on a smaller scale. I did have the Micro Brute, I think it's called, from Arturia for a bit, which had like the most pathetic little like top corner patch bay, but even that was legit. I loved that. But yeah, I got this. And this goes into the first module. So even though it's a desktop synth, I'm using it as individual modules most of the time now. Comes up into the MIDI to CV converter. That comes out of this. As soon as I press play, it clocks this to start going. Then when I come out of this, I come out the clock out and I go into this mult by 2 HP. So it's 2 HP mult. And then that sends the clock out to PAMs and also out to the Eloquencer down here. So when I press play like this, it plays the whole system. So you can't really see me pressing play, but I'm pressing play on the MPC. And it plays the whole system. So I change the BPM on the MPC, it changes the BPM here. Yeah, it's good stuff, very helpful. To the left of that, I do have this little patch bay thing. So it's like, I think it's called like a multi-core or something by Dopefer. But that's just how I've got the CV coming out. So I've got the CV that comes out the back of this. You've got 4 gate, 4 CV. Or just 8 CV out, so it could be 8 CVs or 8 gates. I just use it as pairs, so like I've got 4 gate and CV, so I could trigger voices with melodic information. They come out and go into what's over there. So I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. Wait, see if I can get it. That little thing over there goes into that. It then comes out of that and then comes patched, so I can use like just patch out. So I know all of these top 4 up here, top 8, I suppose. So 4 gates, 4 CV, are just basically corresponding to what comes out of the MPC. And just have tracks in the MPC to sequence longer sections and less generative sections, more actually sort of composed sections. But yeah, so it sends the clock out, sends the CV out. Then in terms of how I get the noises to actually do stuff, again, I'm doing it really conventionally. So I'm using gates and CVs and clocking things to happen in kind of like contemporary arrangements. So like an intro bit and then a verse bit and then always going around 8 bars and multiples of 4 and stuff like that. So it's still quite basic. I am, like I said, look at watching all the other videos of people like Maths and so on, just making noise and then just sequencing the noise off the back of that noise. But yeah, I'm using Pam's. When I first got this, Pam's new workout, this was my everything sequencer. So this was sequencing drums that I'd play on the Squid, which is next to it. It's like a drum machine. I'd also have CVs that would come out and just spit out random voltages, but set to a specific scale, so I could play melodies that are quite generative. It was amazing. I love it. I still love it now. But this now, because I've got the Eloquencer at the bottom, this is purely just for like modulation. I do have one output which is dedicated to the reset on the Eloquencer. So basically, whenever I press play, I know when I stop it and play again, it's going to play from the start. So I do lose an output on this just to reset this, but it's well worth it because I just get more of that with the Eloquencer. So yeah, that brings me to the Eloquencer. This took months and months of research. I say research, I was just stuck indoors because I couldn't go out because of COVID and that. So I just ended up watching loads of videos on it and loads of different sequences. I looked at the Rene 2, but it wasn't enough. I'm extremely cheap. And if I'm going to be spending top whack, I'm going to want top whack shit. This had 8 gates and 8 CVs on it, fully probable with everything. It's a step sequencer that I really liked when I had the Electron boxes. Same as the SP16, which I've done a video on, which I loved and then sold. Don't regret it though, to be honest. I had fun with it. It's gone to someone that will use it more. But yeah, I love it. It's just sick, and it's got a lovely little visual on it as well. Very visual. We'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, this area here, this bit, this is where like I go that way from. So like I just start here, I start clocking things and making different sequences and whatevers and rhythms, and then it goes into whatever I want it to go into. So yeah, actually let's start up here. So the liveforms, 2 oscillator synthesizer, completely separate from each other, multiple outputs. There's a weird wave on this called the blade wave, which is like a saw wave, which has got like a hump in it, like a sine hump. Really nice once you start to do some pulse width modulation on it. Great for top basses. It's got sync, but it's not. I don't know what that is because it's not sync. It's weird sync. It doesn't act like normal sync, but apparently it's got it. Another oscillator with just less stuff. One less wave, I think. This doesn't have the blade wave, but it's got all the others. You've got a analog LFO, which was very boring. It's boring. Look, it's just LFO. There's no control. It's just other than your hand, but it's good for stuff. I just use it. It's automatically patched to, if I turn this up, that's the pulse width modulation, and I get that, so it's fine. Hooray. This is the mixer. So you've got 2 separate 2-input mixers or just a 4-input mixer. The bottom bit is where it happens. The bottom bit's the bollocks. You've got sub out, which is basically just an octave underneath the original oscillator, or oscillator 1, and then sub 2, which is 2 octaves down. So you could, in theory, pitch this oscillator, which already goes unbelievably low, down another 2 octaves. So again, for generatively random stuff, I sometimes use those. Yeah, noise output, it's always good. Sample and hold. Filter, just beautiful, look at it, it's just huge. But lovely sounding filter. High pass, low pass, band pass, filtery stuff. ADSR, which again I use just separately, separate VCA, 2 buffered mults, and then an output. But yeah, then the Squid sample. I've mentioned I'm a huge sample person. I love sampling stuff. This opened my mind because you sample CV. So it's not just audio, which I do use it for audio. What am I in at the minute? I'm in the generative bank. So yeah, this is just loads of noises that I've put in, like ambient noises, ambient walks and stuff like that. Yeah, but in this one, I've also got sampled waveforms. So you can just sample CV. So sample an LFO or an envelope and then trigger that to happen and like open a VCA or make something do something or open a filter. So this is great. This again, the output from my audio interface from my computer, I've plugged out, which then goes into the other one, which is over there of this patch bay. So I can just patch out and normally just take a patch from here, bottom right, and plug into the sample in. So in theory, at any point, anything playing on my computer ever, I could just sample it into that just instantly and just do what I want with it. It's kind of, it gives me sort of like S950 vibes. I spoke about this before, I'm sure. Really old school sampler that I didn't have because I wasn't into music that deep when the S950 was like large. But yeah, it's just quality. We then move on, if I go up to across here, basically how I've got this set up is around this area, right? So this bit, this makes sense. This bit is like voices, like noises. So I've got the clocking, the triggering and sequencing, moving into voices like here, right? So this is one big synth voice if you want it to be. The next one's the Doper, the A1116. Again, fully enclosed synth voice, extremely basic, but just really good. So you've got one oscillator, which can be triangle or square. You've got pulse width modulation. You've got what sounds like adding in a sub-octave with the balance. You've got VCA. You've got an envelope, you can patch externally, you can use the envelope externally. It's sick. Main use for this is just like leads most of the time, picks, plucks, because the filter sounds nice. Then move down to this one, which is the mutable Platts clone. It's called Beehive. Use this for loads of different things. This is normally the most use it gets is on either the bass, which is this one, just the normal standard one, like a sine wave. I use it for bass lines. It's just a thick sub, or the chord mode. If I'm doing sort of more, how could I put it? Not atmospheric, but more like melodic atmospheres and stuff. I'll use that. I just put it straight into beads and just let it go. So it makes some really nice chord style pads with this. Lovely. We then move down again. I know it's not a cross, but like this is my, remember, this is my noise area. We then move down to the ALM MCO oscillator. I use it for anything. It's just good. It's just solid. It does what it's supposed to. That's it. There's no funny bollocks about it. It's an oscillator. Sounds good. It's got really nice weird digital like wavetables in it. It's lovely. And then I've got the VCA from Dopevar, the A130, which is like exponential, linear, or just off. So I use it like a mute switch sometimes. But I treat this as like a voice, because like this is just an oscillator. This is the VCA for it. So I can just come out of that into this and then have that open with modulations, either from this triggered or when I get to Ornament and Crime. Next, this is like where we move into like crossfading from noise, like source noises to effects. So the beads is the next one. Now this, if I was using it as a voice, it's just when you have nothing plugged into the input, it's a wavetable synth. So it just makes wavetables, which are just vast. You can just, there's so many different textures you can get through it. So I either use it as that, or I'll use it as like the beads. So like weird granulary texture stuff and reverb, because it sounds nice. I'll go more onto the effects afterwards, but that's really how I'm using that. I'm either like cutting it in half, I'm using it as a voice section, or I'm using it as part of the effects section. If we go further down, the Mordax, this is my latest purchase, the Mordax Data. I cannot tell you how much I love this. I'm extremely visual, as you can probably tell by like how I've laid this out. This didn't just happen overnight. This weren't a mistake. Like this wasn't just, oh fuck it, I'll put modules in. Like I sat for, when I tell you hours on Modular Grid, planning it so it looked nice to look at. It was symmetrical in some sort of way. Like I've dissed off modules because they don't fit into what it's supposed to look like. It's pathetic, I know, but I just prefer, that's just how I'm working. But this, like when you can get the two dancing waveforms in an XY scope, it's just game over for me. Like it's that alongside some music. Like the last patch I did a video, the last one I put out, and it was like a generative patch. I think it's called Generative Ambient 002. And in that, this was working, but it wasn't emitting any noise. Like it wasn't audible. I just had two sine waves coming out, going into this. And then I was altering their pitch, so altering the amount of their pitches, basically, using Pam's new workout as the modulator. And it was set to every 8 bars, I believe, or every 4 or 8 bars. So every 4 or 8 bars of music, it would like sync to the music, and it would just make a new shape that would spin and do weird geometric shit that just I love looking at. It was intense. And I also had another wave coming out, the blip coming out here, so you could see like it was like a waveform moving across in real time. Just makes no difference to the noise yet. No one can hear it, but rise, it's good. Like it just does it for me for some reason. I don't know why. Didn't even realise until I got it, and well, not till I got it, but till I started proper researching into it. It's a wave output. You can like have it as an oscillator. You can play it. Yeah, it's just I use it as my tuner now. No more faff tuning the oscillators, coming out of it, going into the interface, opening Logic, making sure that I've got the tuner on the track. It's just long, man. Just like this now in tune it. Like it's done. Next we move along, Ornament and Crime. So this is utilitarian circle, right? So this is where my envelopes come from. I've got this on the standard firmware. There's the other one, the hemispheres, which I tried, which was cool. It was quality, but yeah, I just really like the picked algorithm that's on the normal firmware. Basically, I've got 2 normal envelopes, or 2 positive envelopes, and then 2 inverted envelopes. One of them I always have as a sidechain trigger. Or sorry, a sidechain envelope, which I can trigger from any of the gates from anywhere. Another one I've got inverted if I wanted to do like lower swells up and down, like swelly kind of stuff up and down, but down from the point it was normally at, not up from the point it was at. So I've got 2 inverted and 2 normal. This just is mainly my envelope. So like anything that I have this that I could set to envelopes. I do have a little like patch, little star that I use as mults. I've got a couple of those. I don't know where they are now. I don't know how I've lost that, but yeah, I can just have multiple versions of them coming out. Let's move down to this area now. So like sort of like moving into modulation before we get to the extractive part and the effects. So down here I've got an interrupting mixer by Dopfer. I love Dopfer stuff. Like you can see, like I've got like a couple of the same manufacturer everywhere, other than the winter one. I've got like a few bits from other people. But anyway, I like the Dopfer stuff for the basics, like just the basic things. So this is just a great mixer, 4 channels, 4 mutes. You can send it out plus send it to a separate destination or a destination as well as that one. So it's great for just multing signals out, sending one version clean and one version off to effects and so on. Most of the time I'm using it just for the 4 outputs that you get on the squid. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 and 8. Come out to the separate outputs here if I'm not using the mix out. So I've just got control over it. Before I got the endorphins, the drum machine, which I'll get to in a minute, this squid sample was mainly my drums sounds. So I had 909s in there, 808s, random sort of like samples that I've put in from the MPC. And then it would be like kick on this channel, snare on that channel, hats on that channel, percussion on that one. So I could sort of live make up arrangement sections. Moving along, the Planar 2 by IntelliGel. Something about IntelliGel gear, yeah. It's like the perfect line between clinical equipment and a toy. The way it looks, like it's just brushed, it's just like clinical in it, but still like, oh, fun and that. But anyway, before this, I had the Dopfer joystick. Really like that, but whenever you moved it to say there and let go, it just like sprung back to the middle, which I don't want to stand there all day just holding it like that, right? Sold that one, got this one where you can record waveforms and stuff with it and record your modulation movements. So what I'd use with this, if I'm not using it as a standard mixer, where I just come out like in 4 channels and then out the mix, I use this to draw waveforms. So like I'll use this to draw a certain modulation waveform that I can sample into the squid and then use as a modulation source once I gate it. Or just general movement. Sometimes if like it gets pretty hectic around this area with wires, all I'll do is I'll take like that, whatever that control is, if it's CVable, I'll just come out into either the X or the Y and I'll use this as the control, because this area is always kind of free for me to be moving about in. But yeah, I love this. I think it's great and it looks nice. It looks great. Like just record like a movement, bosh, 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 and then it will play that movement back. If I patch this in actually so you can see it on the scope. This is what the X-axis is saying on 1. There we go. So see, that's like the X-axis on 1. If I go to the Y-axis, then you've got sort of that wave that's working it, actually. So you can see like the movements that are going on. If I come out the X and then into the Y, just have a look at the 2 different waveforms that are working on it. So like that will be my different modulation waveform, like the different modulations that I've got working. I could then send those out to different areas. So yeah, I love this. I think it's great. I'm going to leave that in because I like looking at it. Also, gosh, let's get rid of the background. Look at that. Hey, it's that science equipment. Good stuff. So, drums. Endorphins. This is my second to last purchase, I believe. The Endorphins Queen of Pentacles. Again, if you're like me, you watch endless videos on the modules that you think you will change your life. I watched many drum machine ones. This one ticked every single box, right? Other than 2 things, and they're 2 major things that, if I'm honest, do actually piss me off, but not to the point that I don't like it. It doesn't outweigh the litness of it. So, it's a drum machine. It's a 909 style drum machine. You've got 3 analog drums, kick, snare, and clap. Pucker. Lovely. You've then got 4 sample slots. Spot on. 4 more samples that I can use with this, so I can really start to concentrate using this as my sampler for waveforms and stuff that I record, my own random waveforms. This now is my sample playback and drum machine and stuff. Now the main thing I love about this is the sound of the kick drum. Sounds amazing. However, if you want to tune the kick drum, you've got to take the module out. You've got to get a little annoying toothpick style screwdriver and tune it. Why, please? It's so annoying. It is so annoying, but I still love it. It's amazing. The filters sound sick. They all sound great. I then come out of this into the Golden Master, I think it's called, as my sort of effects for drums. These are just, I treat this as one thing. I don't use that as a separate output. I treat this as one thing. And then this is my drums. I've got like a separate output. So basically, let's talk about the outputs before we get to the effects. I've got 3 separate outputs, right? Top one up here, the Bifaco one. This is normally just the bass line. So the bass, dry signals, basses and that come out of this one. I've then got the mix up. This is where all of my melodic information and effects sort of stuff comes out. 2 inputs, or 2 outputs and 2 into my interface. And then 2 outputs out of this, which is my drums. So I've got drums, stem, melodics, stem, and bassline stem. But the different melodic parts, I've got mutes on, so I could play them through and just mute different sections if I need to have a clean version stem of something. That's my budget, like Jekyll way of multi-tracking this system. Again, I told you I'm cheap. But yeah, so that's how I'm outputting everything. So this is my drum corner. If we move up, I've got my 2 filters. So I'd love to have more. I mean, I do have more, but like separate filters. Okay, they are still separate, but separate filters. The Wasp filter, this is normally for bass and drum information, and the Polaris normally for melodic information. Amazing sounding filters. This as well, sometimes if I want a dirty Amen break style drum, I'll just crank that and lift the resonance a bit. Coming out of this or this, just blasting. So like one of the samples, you can have separate outputs, so the kick, snare and clap always come out of this, right? But then I could patch out like a break that I've got sampled into one of the slots into here, drive it, blah, blah, amazing. Next on the right is the Dopefer stereo mixer. Now, I've been using this as normal DAW guy, so like it says pan on it, so they must be pans. I'm using it as input 1 and 2 is one of these effects units, and input 3 and 4 is another effects run. So like one run of effects things go into 1 and 2 stereo, and another run of affected things go into 3 and 4, which then come out onto this knob here with a mute. But I could just use it as like two separate mono outputs, one going to one thing, and like these two are going to this place, or this one's going to both of them with the crossfade on the like. I have to get into this more, and then we move up to the effects. So in the effects, spoke about the beads. I use this for the normal beady stuff and reverbs. I've then got the Black Hole DSP2. This I either use on number 1, which is a delay, not clockable, extremely annoying. Everything has to be done by hand and just like jumping off a cliff, innit? Like when you want to chat, you're in the middle of making something and you've got it sounding nice, but you just want to see what it sounds like at a different time, like division. By hand, it's like, whoa, shit, like turning it, everything goes wonky and that. But it does sound really nice. If I'm not using it on delay, I'm using it on number 15, which is the saturated reverb. Textural, thick, warm, ambient, beautiful reverb. We then come out of that, we've also got the Monsoon, which is a Clouds clone, original Clouds clone. And this was my first effects unit. This I overused massively. Currently now I'm using it on the Oliverb algorithm or mode. It's pretty good. A dark chasm-like style reverb. It's just huge, actually. Like you could play like one note into it, and it just doesn't stop, even without like, you don't have to press freeze. It just goes into just horrific noise. Basically, I did a patch where I just had a recording of me on the beach, chopped that up into different recordings, placed them onto the different patches here, came out of this into that and out, and it was just like this epic end of the world. Wavy, it was madness. It was just like the worst storm on the beach ever, but beautiful at the same time. That's it. I think I've talked through the rack. How I use it, so this is the other thing, how I'm using it is at the moment very conventional. So I'm starting with a drum beat. So I'll be on the Eloquencer. So let's put something together, shall we? So let's say I'm on the Eloquencer. I'd grab a couple of my green cables. Let's get the greens. Here we go. It's a couple of green cables. So I'll come out number 1, and I'll put some gates down, and I'll just trigger a kick, right? So I'll do triggering a kick. Now, instantly, I know this is just hindering straight away because it's giving me a BPM, and it's giving me something to work with, right? Let's patch this up anyway. So we'll go into here. Let's see what we got. Okay, let's go. So right, we've got a kick drum. Let me just turn this up a bit so I can actually hear it. Give me a sec. Okay, so we've got a kick drum, take it out. Nice, so we've got a kick drum there. I'll then get another one. I'd look at like the clap track, stick a clap in. See, like instantly I'm already making house music. Do you know what I mean? It's like I haven't started with an idea of just ambience. Let me turn the reverb down. Let's put some hats in. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Stick some hats up. See what the hats are saying. So say I've got just a hat pattern going. I then come up and say, look for the Pro 2, not the Pro 2, sorry, the live forms up here. So like you see as I touch the MPC, I'm not actually touching it at the minute, but you see the gate runs in. Let's actually patch this up. So I'll come out here. See if we can reach it just straight to the line output for the bass. Let's record that in just quick. So I've got like a bass line already started. See, there's too many hats there. Put a couple of hats in. Get the kick up. His kick, long kick. I can't pitch it, it's so annoying. But yeah, as you can see, I've already got. Let's just crank this. I know you're not supposed to crank it. Not too bad. Maybe grab some of that modulation. Just take it out from there. So I can I've got a vision of what the modulation's doing and put that in the CV. Too bad. I might have that coming out instead, going to a bit of reverb just on the top part. But that's how I'm starting to make something. You can just see how quick it is. Like, I've got a beat down, I've got a bassline melody idea, and then I can start to add in different bits, ambiences from different places. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. How long have I been talking for? 28 minutes. You've been sat here 28 minutes listening to me rabbit on about bollocks. Excellent. Have a wonderful day. Hope this was helpful or insightful at all, or I might have wasted my day. It's completely up to you. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.